have default settings,
Yeah.
right? Like I know that one of my default setting is impatience.
Yeah,
I
me too.
operate a lot from impatience, but it allows me to get a lot done, right?
Hmm.
I get a lot done with my impatience,
Hmm.
but there's times that it doesn't serve me.
Hmm.
And so like I tell this story to really explain it. This summer, um, my daughter was with me this summer, and I woke her up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I went downstairs to get breakfast ready, and I'm sitting down on the couch drinking my coffee. And about 7:45, my daughter shuffles down the stairs, and my impatience kicks in, right? And I'm thinking, we're going to be late. How's she going to eat her breakfast and brush her teeth and get ready? We got to leave in about 12 minutes. Like, and all of this impatience was about to come out of my mouth. And I sat back and I felt it and I was like, hang on. Is this impatience going to improve my relationship with my daughter?
Hmm.
Is it that big of a deal if we're a couple minutes late to her summer camp? Is this something that I really want to interact with this early in the morning and set her day off like this? And I was like, no.
Hmm.
And it was a failure on me as a leader, as a parent. I didn't set the expectation when I woke her up, like, hey, I need you downstairs in 30 minutes. I didn't set
Hmm.
that expectation, so that's my
Hmm.
fault,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so I just sat on the couch and let her slowly eat her breakfast. And we were a couple minutes late, but it was like, oh well. So that self-awareness, because I know that that impatience is my default setting, that I have to rein that in sometimes.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it is hard.
Yeah,
It is
mine
hard.
too. Yeah, impatience is mine too. I'm not going to give you an example, but I do have to a lot of times take a deep breath and just tell myself, you're being impatient and look at
Mhm.
the situation, whatever that may be or where I am, what's
Yes.
making me impatient. Because you're right, 9 times out of 10, it's nothing that I can do about it. Okay.
Mhm.
All I can do as far as what may be going on around me, all I can do is shift what I need to do to get out of that feeling of being impatient, being impatient. Because that's one people tell me, that was one of my years ago when I used to interview when I was, in corporate, and they ask you what's your weakness and tell them impatience. Well, and it's one of my weakness.
Yeah.
I could be impatient, and but then I always spin it, how I work on it, how I recognize it, and that's all
Mhm.
emotional intelligence. It's all
Yeah.
self-awareness, but that's
Yeah.
one of my weaknesses is impatience. So I totally get it. I totally get it. All right. Let's see here. Um, where do we want to go next? Oh, you did kind of touch on this a little earlier about when you talked about getting to the point, your book
Mhm.
and getting to the point and how leaders struggle with clarity, and speaking with their teams, being kind of straightforward and instead of wishy-washy and
Sure.
about what's going on, instead of being what I call honest and authentic. That's
Mhm.
basically how I call it. So, what are some red flags, Justin? Red flag words or phrases that undermine authority, and how should leaders replace those?
Sure. So there's so many. So let's pick a few. So we
Okay.
talked about the stop action verbs a little bit.
Yeah.
Some other, ones, if it's a goal we're trying to accomplish and we're saying I think or maybe or kind of, we need to really be aware of that language. The ones that really undermine us without our realization are using terms that are abstract and conceptual rather than concrete and behavioral. And so I'll give you some examples here. So if I say, you know, as a leader, I need you to improve your attitude. Well, what do you mean attitude? What do you mean improve? Right?
Hmm.
But we say these statements and we think we're being clear. It's like, well, I need you to write a better report. Well, what does better look like? Rather than saying, I need your report to include XYZ
Hmm.
and being very, we need to speak in a way, especially as leaders, to where we cannot be misinterpreted. And we get so used to using these abstract terms that it's just, "Oh, you know what I mean." And then you hear the word and you think something else with it, right?
Mhm,
And so there's a big part in the book that focuses on these concrete and behavioral terminology
mhm,
and how important that is to speaking clearly as a leader.
mhm,
And so if you can be misinterpreted, you need to reword it.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Those abstracts, phrases that can have so many different meanings. You can
Yes.
read so much, so many different things into it. And I really don't, for me, that those are kind of pushback moments for me, uh,
Hmm.
to be for the clarity of it, to really, you've got to give me more than just when people say improve your attitude, it's like improve what?
Yes.
You know, what do you mean improve my attitude? Give me some examples. You
Yes.
know, give me some examples of what you mean by that. You know, and um, and then give me some solutions. I also
Hmm.
feel, you know, if you're going to be a leader and you're going to, if you want to speak with clarity, you also have to come with some solutions, or if not solutions, just some things that can help your team get where you want them to be.
Hmm.
I can't read your mind. And if you give me something abstract, even like you say with the report, you know, I need you to improve the report. Well, let's talk about what needs to be improved. And I think I'm a leader that I'm all about growing and developing.
Hmm.
So for me, because I'm about growing and developing leaders, I'm very concrete about those things. You know, so even in my coaching of leaders, you know, it's like you set expectations for people without giving them any kind of tools, you know, or help to really understand what it is that you're trying to you want them where you want them to be or what you want them to do.
Yeah.
So that's part of me because like I said, I'm all about growing leaders. I'm going to teach. Part of what I do is teaching, and you know, is teaching is a big thing that I kind of explain to leaders. Well, if you're not explaining to your people what they need to do, then how can they get where you want them to be? That kind of the
Exactly.
aha moment for a lot of them. And then they'll
Yeah.
come up with something. I say, you know this person. What is it? Something that you can do? What kind of action steps can you take? Or what is it something that you can think knowing this person to get them where you want them to go? And
Yeah.
then they'd be like, oh, yeah, well, maybe I'll have them do this. And maybe I'll have them do that. I said, yeah, why don't we try that? See you know, see what I mean? So
Sure.
you're right. It has to do with self-awareness, you know, this emotional intelligence, and that kind
Hmm.
of flows into my next question because I know you use a lot of that in your work. So what role does self-awareness play in leadership, and how can someone develop it if it doesn't come naturally to them?
Yeah,
What's
it's a difficult thing because I can't say that it's easy to build this level of self-awareness. So some of it is having like building these structures, like understanding the words that are undermining you, creating that engagement with someone else
hmm
and saying, "Hey, like hold me accountable to this," or make you could even make it a team effort. Like,
hmm
hey, let's remove these words from our marketing campaign or our internal dialogue because we want to be a high functioning team, and so it can almost be a competition, like removing those words just from within your team. And the self-awareness piece, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot and constant work
hmm
because I was talking this yesterday in a training I was giving. It takes what it takes, right? You can't stack marbles. You know, it takes constant work to keep your self-awareness on point because I've been teaching this for nearly a decade. I still find myself, I have to catch myself,
hmm
you know, from using this language or to not react instead of responding, that emotional intelligence. So the best thing for leaders to understand is that it's a constant practice.
Hmm.
It's not a
I agree.
sometime.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it,
Yeah,
it, you have to practice it every day in the moments that don't matter. So when it does matter, you can turn that switch on.
you can turn it on, right?
Yeah.
I think throughout the career, even someone that's coming up through their career, let's say you're just starting out in your career, if you start at that level within your, I will say, locus of control, using your self-awareness or start to develop your self-awareness skills, that it will serve you throughout your career, whatever that may look like for you.
Yeah.
Whatever that may look like for you. I was teaching one person that one of our presidents, I admired their self-awareness or their emotional intelligence and certain situations that they were in. So I kind of always think about them um, when I think about myself and find myself in in the situation. I just had one yesterday where it was like where I was in a situation where my self-awareness had to come out. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? I had to come out because, like you said, I was kind of getting upset, getting impatient, not understanding. We weren't kind of communicating or seeing on the same page with this situation. But, it's it's after maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, I was like, okay, now I'm getting to the point where my emotional intelligence is coming out to say, you just need to recalibrate and kind of look at what they are trying, look at their side instead of
Yeah.
having that blockage. We have blockage where we kind of get, I don't want to call it a blind spot. It's just blockage where all we can see is what we see.
Mm.
It's not necessarily not, and then when you do that, you're blocking out um how do we say it, Justin? You block out I guess, the ability to let anything else than what you see in.
Mm. Kind of that contempt prior to investigation
Yeah,
concept.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. So, what else do I have for you today? Oh, here's something. So, for listeners who want to put your ideas into practice right now, what's one actionable step they
Mm.
could take today to communicate effectively and lead with confidence?
Well, I'll lean on the first tool that I share in my book, which is the
Mhm.
10 word rule. If you are communicating, whether this is in person or email, sum up your point in about 10 words and get that out on the table. Like, this is what we're talking about today, or this
Mhm.
is what this email is about. And
Mhm.
sum it up in about 10 words and start there. Start with the point first,
Mhm.
and then you can go into the context and the explanation afterwards. So sum it up in 10 words. Let
Okay.
everybody know what you're talking about up front.
Okay. Okay. I a lot of that, I like your concept, but I've worked with police departments over the years, and I've had police officers in my family.
Hmm.
I do have, well, some are retired now, but I have some of the sons of police officers that are on the force now here where I am. And so in working with, when you talked about you teaching your class when it comes to emotional intelligence, and I've worked with women police officers that had I guess, a nonprofit that they work with the community. And it was interesting in our workshops that I led with them, how they talked about when they went through the academy and how they came out, with this gung ho, I'm going to save the world kind of mentality. But then when they, I guess, were assigned wherever they were assigned, working at whatever station they were working at, and then working with women that they reported to, it was like, kind of hold up. They did talk about how the academy, I guess, kind of revs them up
Hmm.
for being an officer, but then when they actually get out to, into their actual work, they graduate and get out to their work, that they've run into people that have kind of shown them the emotional intelligence piece of the work.
Yeah.
And how, we're just, you're not just here like the old West, but the emotional intelligence piece of the work, and how they how much they learn from them in handling high pressure environments or situations.
Yeah.
So, I've have stories too from my family, and I always think about, I always tease them about it sometimes, but I think that's one of the roles or one of the occupations that really require a very high level of understanding of
Yes.
what self-awareness is. But so that's kind of all the questions that I have. Is there anything else, Justin, that you want to share with me and my guest today?
I would say, it came up um, earlier.
Hmm.
As a leader, we have to be able to give our teams permission to correct us.
Okay.
I think a lot of that helps with the self-awareness. I've had to train my teams along the way
Hmm.
because we've all worked for those leaders that don't want to be corrected,
Mm-mm.
right?
Hmm.
And so we've created that kind of training scar in our
Hmm.
teams because they're like, don't correct the boss because
Right.
he's gonna get
Right.
upset. So you have to give your teams permission to correct you when you say something that's not correct, when you say something that's not clear,
Mhm.
because that will build so much trust in your team and it will help you with your own level of awareness. Because if they do it a couple times, I'm like, am I doing that thing again? Okay, all right, my bad,
Right.
right? That's my
Yeah.
fault. Like let's
Right.
be clear. And it's going to help build a more high productive team. Because
Right.
when you say something and you give them the ability to correct you, you're like, well, boss, I think it's this. Hey, please prove me wrong. If
Right.
I'm wrong, I want to know that I'm wrong. And so I think it's such a huge piece to give your teams permission to correct you and point out when you're being unclear or when you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're all human and we're all in this together. I
Yeah.
mean, if leadership has so many faces and so many facets to it, and a
Yeah.
lot of it has to do, I think, with how you want to lead.
Yeah.
How do you want to be perceived when it comes to being a leader? Because they always say people don't leave the company, they leave who they work for.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, they leave who they work for. So this has been fun, Justin. It's been fun. I really enjoyed a lot of your perspectives when it comes to leadership. It's not, I would say, a different angle. It's just a variation that's
Sure.
that's refreshing, that I think is very refreshing.